And we are back. Way back in February, I did a video about trading in my Honda Rebel 500 for a Suzuki GSX 8S. I still think that's a crazy, ridiculous name for a bike. In that video, I'm going to link it up here. You can check it out if you haven't seen that video yet. In that video, I did a first impressions take on the bike. I literally rode it off the showroom floor. I took it on a spin around town, and I did just a quick video about the initial first impressions of it. And in that video, I mentioned that later in the season, once I've got some time and experience on this bike, I could do a follow-up video with a proper review of it. So it is now September. It is 7 months later. I put 5,000 kilometers on this bike this summer, riding through the beautiful Alberta Rocky Mountains. And let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of this bike. Spoiler alert, it's mostly good. I really do like this bike. I do have a few minor gripes, but let's talk about them. Let's start with a quick tour of the customizations and the add-ons that I've done to this bike, and then we'll get on the road and take a spin. Now, before we get started, I want to stress that I have never, ever done a paid endorsement on this YouTube channel. If I say that I like something, it's because I actually like it. I'm not being paid by some corporation to tell you that I like it. So let's get into it. Okay, let's start up front and work our way back. The very first upgrade I did was to put grip puppies on the handlebars. You cut these and install them. And it just makes the stock grip, man, there's hornets everywhere today. It just makes the stock grip a little bit easier on the wrist, especially on long highway rides. I love these. I had these on my last bike. I have them on this bike. I'm going to have them on my next bike as well. The other thing you'll see, and this is a purely cosmetic change, of course, is I peeled off all the Suzuki branding off the side. By the way, that's not painted on. Those are just stickers. If you leave the bike sitting outside on a hot day like this, the adhesive will warm up and you won't even need tools. You can just use your fingernail to slowly peel off all those stickers. I did put the Lone Wolf on there in its place, but I think it gives the bike a nice clean look. Let's move to the rear. You can see I did a tail tidy. I talked about this in the very first video because the only thing I don't like about this bike style-wise is that ridiculous stock tail. I'm going to put up a before and after picture so you can see what it used to look like. It's not just a big obnoxious plastic tail hanging over the rear wheel. They actually moved the license plate and the lights to the far end of that tail. I don't know what they were thinking, Suzuki. You can get an aftermarket tail tidy. This one is made by Yoshimura, but there's others on the market. It moves that license plate and these lights back up under the passenger seat where it belongs. It makes the bike look a lot nicer. Of course, that's a purely cosmetic change. It doesn't affect the handling. It might be a slight weight reduction, maybe like, I don't know, half a pound lighter or whatever. It was made of plastic. So it's not going to make a huge difference, but, you know, cosmetically, aesthetically, I think it looks much, much better. Now, this is a bit controversial, but let's talk about the windscreen. Yeah, I added a windscreen to a naked bike. That kind of defeats the purpose of a naked bike. You're supposed to be out there in the wind. My last bike was a naked cruiser, and I spent a lot of time on the highway. I find that having the windscreen deflects the air up off my chest and off my shoulders, because on the highway and long highway rides, that wind can just be kind of punishing. You know, it's just constantly there. Your body acts like a parachute, slowing the bike down. It's nice to get it up off your chest. The windscreen does deflect the air up to about helmet height. And you might think, well, doesn't that mean the wind's still hitting you right in the face? Well, yeah, it is. That can be a good thing, though, because if the wind's hitting you in the face, you can still use the air scoops on the top of your helmet. If it's a really hot day, you can still get fresh air coming in. You don't want to deflect the air up over your head, because then you're sitting in this pocket of stale air, and it, I don't know, the CO2 builds up inside the helmet. You want to get fresh air into the helmet, so you don't want to deflect the air up too high. It deflects it up to about nose height, which is just about right for getting fresh air in the helmet scoops. So, I don't know. One guy described this as a riot shield, and now I can't unsee it. It does look like a riot shield on the front of the bike, and you can see it does its job in deflecting, you know, bug splatters, keeping those off the front of your chest. But more importantly, it deflects that airflow, and it really helps on long highway rides. Get out of here, bug. What are you? What kind of bug is that? Seriously, what was that? The other thing I like about the let me come around the other side. The other thing I like about the windshield, I forgot what it's called. Man, hornets are everywhere. The other thing I like about the windshield is that it gives you that riser bar that you can use for various mounts, like the phone mount or the camera mount or what have you. Now let's talk about a couple of things that I did not upgrade on this bike. Let's talk about the exhaust. I actually quite like the stock exhaust on this bike. It's a short stubby number that's directly under the bike. If you look at some other motorcycles, they've got a big can coming up the side above the center line of the wheel. It moves a little bit of weight up. For this bike, they made a deliberate design decision to keep as much weight down low as possible to keep it to give it a low center of gravity. So they put a short stubby exhaust directly under the bike. Now I only have the camera mic here. This might not sound too great, but if I start it up, you can hear It's got a decent sound to it. Is it as good as some of the aftermarket exhaust you can get? No, but it sounds quite nice. It looks quite nice. I'm actually quite happy with it. Back in February on day one, I thought about maybe putting an aftermarket exhaust on it, but after riding on it for a while with the stock exhaust, I'm quite happy with the stock exhaust. I'm just going to leave it. Another thing I did not upgrade is the stock seat. That is not by choice. I can't find one for this bike. On my last bike, I had the Corbin seat, and that was amazing. Corbin, unfortunately, does not yet make a seat for this bike. If they ever do, I'll be their first customer. The stock seat, it's fine if you're just zipping around town on really short rides. But if you're going out to the highway, if you're on the bike for more than an hour, hour and a half, that stock seat is just, I mean, man, you got to take a lot of breaks. It's not great. Another thing that I did not upgrade are the tires. This bike comes with Dunlops. They're made specifically for this bike. They're okay. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not terrible. They're not super high-end. They're adequate. Anecdotally, I've heard that the Michelin Road 5s and Road 6s are much better on this bike than the Dunlops. I don't know that from personal experience. My plan is to ride these Dunlops until they're worn out and then replace them with Michelins and see if I can do a proper comparison there. All right, enough jibber jabber. Let's get on the road and take it for a little spin. Let's talk a little bit about the display. It has the option of having a white background or a black background. Personally, I find the black background much easier to read at a glance. And the key word there is at a glance. You don't want to be staring at this thing while you're riding. You want to keep your eye line up so you can keep an eye on what's going on around you. If you just quickly glance down, you can very easily see all the things you need to see. You've got speed, tachometer, gear indicator, temperature, fuel. But let's talk a little bit about the negatives. Look at the fuel gauge. Take a good look at the fuel gauge and see if you can tell me how much gas do I have right now. It looks like it's telling me I'm on empty because you've got the red bar on the left. And then the white bars just look like background, right? It's telling me that my current fuel level is on empty, right? No, it's actually full. Would you have guessed that by looking at it? That drives me crazy. I don't know why they did that. The gray bars represent your actual fuel, and the bar on the left is just always red. I don't know why. When the gray bars get down to that red bar, that's when you know you're out of gas. Why they didn't just have like one bar instead of a red bar on top of the gray background? Why just have one bar and have it turn red when it gets down low? I don't know. Let's counter that negative point with a positive point. I kind of like the one-touch start. It's nice and easy. All right. Let's get on the road and talk about the fun stuff. Oops. It's these damn hornets. That's what I'm blaming it on. They're distracting me. You know, I'm sure I'm going to get stung. All right, let's get on the highway and take off. Yeah, keep up with me now, Hornets. Keep up with me now. Okay, effortlessly up to speed. Effortlessly. Let's talk about the number one thing I love about this bike. Torque. This bike has got torque for days. In almost any gear, at almost any speed, if you hit that throttle, the bike just wants to move. It just wants to take off. Now, in the previous video, I talked about the selectable throttle modes. You've got mode A, mode B, mode C. You can turn it down to mode C if you're a little bit scared or if it's, raining outside or whatever. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Right after that video, I turned it up to mode B, rode it for a couple of days, and then I turned it up to mode A, and it's basically been there ever since. I haven't touched it since then. So the selectable throttle mode thing, even that one day I had to ride through the rain, I didn't even think of turning it down to mode C. I just left it in mode A. It's fine. You do have to be a little bit careful with it. If you give it too much throttle in the wrong time at the wrong gear, it can try to get away from you. Now, to counterbalance that, I've left the traction control on 1, the lowest traction control setting. It keeps you from doing something stupid. It keeps you from spinning the wheel. It keeps the front end on the ground. I did once manage to capture one of the times that I hit the traction control. Let's show that clip right now. I think I can beat this guy off the light, 'cause I'm on a motorcycle, meow, meow, meow. Man, I kicked in traction control on that one. Yeah, come on. The traction control kicks in when you go a little too hard, and it keeps the front wheel on the ground, keeps you from doing something stupid. I mean, let's face it, fun is fun, but keep both wheels on the ground, right? Ride safe. But I will say that having this much torque is really nice. Keep in mind, I'm coming from, the last bike that I was on for 5 years before this was a Honda Rebel 500, which did not have a lot of horsepower. And on the highway in particular, if you're stuck behind someone who's going slow, you need a good long brake in oncoming traffic to get around them. At least on the 500, on the old Honda, I mean. On this bike, you just kinda have to think about it, and before they even know you're behind them, you're in front of them. That's how fast it is. It's really crazy. Now, is this a leader bike? No, of course. It's not a performance-tuned leader bike. It doesn't have the same kind of pull on the highway. You do start to feel it running out of steam a little bit in the higher gears, 6th gear in particular. I mean, it still has torque. If you give it some throttle, it'll answer, but it's not a leader bike. It's not going to give you the same kind of pull that you're used to if your last bike is I don't know, a turbo booster or something ridiculous. But as a mid-range bike, as a 700, 800 class bike, this is fantastic. I love this engine. It's super responsive. Now Suzuki brags about the fact, this is a 270 crank, by the way, 270 degree crank. Suzuki brags about the fact that they built in a bunch of vibration dampening into this engine, and I will say that most of the time it works really well. There's a certain specific speed where you can start to feel a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit of vibration in the foot pegs. It's not enough to, throw you off or anything, but it's just enough that it's just a little bit annoying. What's weird is if you go faster than that speed, it goes away. If you go slower than that speed, it goes away. There's one specific speed, which I'm not going to name, at which you will feel this vibration. It's the kind of speed you're never going to hit in the city. You might feel it on the highway if you're passing someone, or if you're riding in a, shall we say, spirited manner. You might stumble upon this one specific speed where you feel a little bit of tingling in your feet through those foot pegs because it's vibrating just a little bit. But by and large, I will confirm that Suzuki's vibration dampening, whatever they did inside that engine, it really works. At every other speed, you don't feel any. I mean, really, I feel nothing through those foot pegs right now. It's not vibrating at all. But let's talk about a possible negative. Let's talk about heat. This bike is absolutely fine when you're on the highway and you've got wind coming in the front. It's mostly air cooled, and it does a really good job of it. I find 85, 86 degrees is typical when you're cruising on the highway. But as soon as you slow down, and I mean like as soon as you slow down, this bike starts to heat up. It heats up like nothing. My last bike didn't have a temperature gauge on it, so I never really thought about it. I did hear the fan click on once or twice on that old Honda, like when I'm doing some really low speed maneuvers in a parking lot on a hot sunny day, but I didn't think much of it. This bike, if you're stopped at a stop sign or a red light, you know what? I don't even have to tell you, I can just show you. Roll the clip. Okay, outro take 3, as soon as this light goes. Oh my god, the bike is overheating already. Already! This bike overheats like nothing. This bike overheats so quickly. It's at 105 degrees. I've been at this red light for like 10 seconds. Okay, outro take 3 in 3, 2, 1. And I encountered this many times when I was getting used to this bike. Roll the next clip. Well, that cooled the bike off awfully quick. That's one thing I'll say. This bike heats up when it's idling very rapidly, but as soon as you get moving, it's so well air cooled, it goes right back down. But as soon as you stop, you can just watch it click up. I mean, look at the thermometer just immediately starts going up as soon as you come to a stop and there's no more airflow. The bike starts heating up like it's on fire. I've got to note that for the review I'm going to do at the end of this season. That's one of the few things I don't like about this bike, is that it runs hot. Super hot. So yeah, when you're out on the highway, no big deal at all. If you're riding in the city, you gotta watch the temperature because it creeps up like crazy. This bike gets super hot super fast, especially if you're going below, let's say, about 50 or 60 kilometers per hour. The bike just starts to heat up immediately. Now let's talk about the Quickshifter. I love the Quickshifter on this bike. It's super smooth. Some people have complained that it's a bit janky. I've not felt it to be jerky unless I don't hit it hardly enough. I did manage to capture that on camera once. Let's roll that clip real quick. It's good enough. Let's go. Go, 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 go. Come on, come on. Quickshifter did not quick shift because I didn't tap it hard enough. I hate when that happens. You have to tap it like you mean it. Oh, the limit's 90 here. I keep forgetting. Okay. Slow down there, boy racer. But by and large, if you're accelerating and you hit that quick shifter, it just goes so fast. It's much faster than I can shift manually. It lives up to its name. In the down direction as well, you just have to stomp it. But you have to stomp it like you mean it. If you hit it halfway, the bike doesn't really know what you mean, and it jerks a little bit. The other thing I've noticed is that, and I haven't done this in a while, but instinctively when you shift up, your instinct is to roll off the throttle as you're shifting. For example, you manually shift up, you roll off throttle, clutch in, shift, clutch out, and throttle back up. That's that forward rolling motion to get off the throttle that just comes naturally when you're shifting manually. When you're quick shifting, you don't do that. You stay on the throttle. You hold the throttle open, and the bike, it's ride by wire. You're not pulling on a cable there. It's like an attenuator. It's an electronic attenuator. The bike can automatically kill the fuel flow to the engine as it shifts without you having to roll off throttle. So you just hold the throttle open as you shift. I wonder if people who complain about this quick shifter being jerky are just instinctively rolling off the throttle. Let's see if I can, you know what? Is there anybody behind me? There's nobody behind me. Let me gear down, slow down a little bit. I'm gonna accelerate, and I'm going to use the quick shifter, but I'm gonna roll off the throttle, and nah, you know, even then, even when I roll off throttle while I'm quick shifting, it doesn't really feel jerky to me. It's always felt really smooth. I've got no complaints about the quick shifter. The only minor gripe I will make, and this is rider error, is if when you're shifting up during a hard acceleration, if you don't hit that shifter peg firmly up, the bike might not honor the shift, and it'll end up with you revving your engine, as we saw in that clip. Now, one thing I'll note about this bike, and again, I'm comparing it to my last bike, I'm comparing it to the Honda 500. This bike seems to have really strong engine braking. For example, I'm doing just under 90, which is the limit on this road. If I let go of the throttle, I'm not going to hit the brakes, I'm just going to let go of the throttle. Look how quickly the bike sheds speed. It's almost as though I'm braking, and I'm not. On the Rebel, the bike would maintain its speed a lot better than that. This can be a plus or a minus, I guess, depending on what you're used to. It's kind of nice. If you need to lose speed, I don't know. I think I'd prefer softer engine braking, but I don't know. I can see an argument for it either way. So, would I recommend this bike? Obviously, yes, I really, really like it. It was definitely a strong upgrade from my Honda. It was definitely a strong upgrade from my Honda 500. The question is, to whom would I recommend this bike? Some people in the comment section of the last video said that this bike, because of the selectable throttle modes, might be a good choice for a complete beginner. I'm going to disagree with that. I think even in mode C, this bike is probably a bit much for an absolute beginner. If this is your first bike, my advice would be go for something smaller. Go for a little baby Ninja. Go for something, you know, 250, 300, maybe 400, maybe 500 as a first bike, fine. But anything bigger than that, you're maybe asking for trouble. Yes, it's nice that you can graduate up to mode A, but I think this bike is probably not for complete beginners. This is an intermediate level bike. It's a mid-range bike. It's for intermediate riders, intermediate and up. If you're looking for something fun that's not going to break your bank account, I strongly recommend this bike. It's a lot of fun. It's got torque, it's got power, it's got style. It's fun to ride, it's fun to flick it into the corners, it's very maneuverable. I love doing this. I love these windy mountain roads where you can just hammer it, you know, like, I mean, within the speed limit, of course, but when you can just hammer it and go around those curves, just throw this bike into the curves. It's really, really fun. Now, of course, almost any motorcycle fits that category, right? I think there are so many strong contenders in the mid-range motorcycle market right now that you almost can't miss. I mean, you buy an MT-07 or you buy a Honda Hornet or you buy an SV650 or I mean, geez, pick anything on this list and you're gonna have an absolute blast. I think you can't miss. I don't know if there's a bad one right now. Okay, let's talk about one of the ugly things about this bike. I want to talk about fuel economy. If you ride nice and gently, this bike actually does all right in terms of fuel economy. It takes premium. Buddy, you're going the wrong way. That's a one-way. Moron. It takes premium, so it's not, super cheap to fill up. But if you ride it nice and gingerly, it's not bad for fuel economy. Here's the problem. If you don't ride it nice and gingerly, and I'm not saying this from personal experience, but let's just say anecdotally, you ride in a, shall we say, spirited manner, you will find that your fuel economy, and I'm not exaggerating, I've actually measured this. In fact, the bike even tells you, if you go somewhere here, it tells you, it doesn't do it while you're driving, but it tells you how many liters per 100 kilometers you're getting as you're driving. You can measure your fuel economy, and I don't want to talk too specifically here, but if you ride in a, shall we say, spirited manner, your fuel economy goes down by 50%. You burn 50% more fuel in a spirited riding manner compared to in a, shall we say, civilized riding manner. That means that, and again, I'm not exaggerating, on some longer trips, I have fueled up 3 times from the time I leave home to the time I get back home again a few hours later. I have to stop and hit a gas station 3 times. Not filling it from empty each time, but topping it up 3 times before I go back home. And that's just from riding around. But again, it depends how you ride. So I can't fault Suzuki on that. If you drive it like a little old lady, you'll get reasonably good fuel economy. If you don't drive it like a little old lady, well, that's on you. That's on you if you drive in a spirited manner everywhere you go. Okay, back in the city now. Let's talk about seating position. The foot pegs on this bike are situated just about perfectly. They're high enough without being super high. The seating position on this bike, you're not slumped forward over the gas tank like on some sports bikes. You can duck down, especially with the windshield here, you can duck down under the wind if you're going super fast, but normally you're going to be sitting up right about like this. I've got a natural bend in my leg, I'm 6 feet tall, and I'm sitting mostly upright. Now the brother of this bike is the GSX 8R, the racing version. They lower the handlebars a little bit so that your seating position is more inclined forward. That's great if you're on the track, but if you're on the highway, for long periods of time, I don't know, being slumped over the gas tank, kind of hard on the bike. Kind of hard on the back, I should say. This bike, by default, you're sitting right about like this. You're leaning very slightly forward. The more forward you have to lean, the more weight is going to be on your wrists. That's where the grip puppies come in handy, because you're not... because you're putting more weight on your wrist. It's more strain, especially on longer rides. This bike, because of the reasonably upright seating position, you don't have to worry about it so much. That being said, man, the Hornets are here too. They're everywhere. That being said, on the Honda, of course, because it was a cruiser, my feet were further forward, like this, at more of a 90-degree angle on the leg, and you are sitting more, like almost leaning backwards. It was very comfortable on long rides. That's also where the seat comes in handy. So what else can I say about this bike? I really, really like it. I've got a few leftover clips that I can insert here at the end of the video, just to give you a flavor of what the riding on this bike was like this summer. Let's roll them. Oh, I love this bike so much. It's so effortless to throw it into the curves. Oh, I love how quickly this bike gets up to speed. It's effortless. It's effortless, I'm telling you. And I love these winding mountain roads. I love it. Bring it on. So overall, a solid mid-range bike. You really can't go wrong with this one. It's stylish. It looks nice. It's fast. It's torquey. It's fun to ride. It does attract compliments. Especially in this blue, I think is a really nice shade of blue. Unfortunately, 100% of the compliments I've received on this bike have been from guys. If you're getting into motorcycling because you think it's going to attract women, let me dispel that notion. In my experience, women do not care about motorcycles at all. I've never once, not once, received a compliment on this bike from a woman. It's always guys who are like, oh, dude, like at a gas station or a red light or whatever, somebody will roll down the window and say, oh, dude, that is such a nice bike. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, man, that's great. Never once from a woman, but that's okay. So that'll do it for this video. I hope that this was helpful for you. If you're thinking about maybe picking up one of these things, you can't go wrong. It's a great, solid, awesome, fun bike. So that'll do it for today. Always ride safe. We'll see you next time on Lernen und Fahren.